When was the last time you were in touch with the movement of your body? In so-called civilized society, it's the mind that's given primacy. I think, therefore I am. The body is, at best, considered a type of machine, often objectified and exploited for the entertainment and profit of others.
At its root, the sexual energy is not differentiated.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just working through different bodies, so whatever your body is.
Meet Alkistis Dimech and Peter Gray, the couple behind the independent occult press Scarlet Imprint. Besides publishing beautiful, collectible, talismanic books, they have also been writing essays about magic for the past decade. They've collected them in their anthology, The Brazen Vessel, which is out now.
Babylon is sex. And I think it's very necessary for it to work absolutely uninhibitedly through the female body, but also through the male, because the male and the female together, like the female energy when she's fully in bloom controls the male energy. I love male energy, actually. I love masculine energy in all its flavors. But for that to fully be, and not to be something which like just goes out of control and damages other people, men and women, the female energy has to be completely strong and unhindered.
The body isn't just a vehicle to transport the mind or spirit. It's an integral, foundational aspect of magic. Without the body in movement, we are cut off from the most primal aspect of our magic.
But always the focus is on Babylon, because she represents this entirety of woman, including everything that was forbidden, but which is there.
Get instant access to the complete 2-hour conversation by becoming a member at patreon.com/witchesandwine.
So, you gotta ask him to zhuzh his hair. He's really
yes, of
upset
course.
if you don't.
Of course.
He feels like he will miss out on certain
Yeah. Something needs to be
pleasures.
Yeah. Hello everybody, Chalon here, and today I have these two very special guests. You guys know Alkistis. She was on my channel a couple months ago.
So it's just that there wasn't really a female practice. There are a few texts of women's Taoist practice, like solo practice, and some tantric material, but it's mostly from a male perspective. So if you're looking to start working as a woman, there's almost nothing to be getting on. So for me, because there are no texts, I worked with body as the text, as the repository of knowledge. So I always just understood it as, here is where I talk to my ancestors. Here is where I, call the ghosts to speak to me or to bring me messages in dreams. I'm very interested in the relationship between the moving body and dream.
And in between us is Peter. And I'm just meeting Peter today. Today we are talking about many things, but especially about the new book that's coming out, Brazen Vessel.
The goetic spirits were sealed by Solomon in a brazen vessel and thrown into a lake in Babylon. But it's also a brazen vessel is a general thing, like a vessel made of bronze, and so also in Babylonian magic, the exorcists would use a big bronze drum, a brazen vessel, which they would use as like their primary exorcistic tool as well as being a shameless woman. So it's all those things.
Yeah, so many layers. I initially thought it was about Babylon.
We try not to do anything that doesn't have 2 or 3 nested meanings.
There must have been a reason why you chose that name, that title.
Well, one of the reasons, if you take the goetic spirits, so in the lesser key, there's a whole range of spirits who've all been thrown together and have all been combined, and their combination gives them their identity. So in the same way, the essays and the ideas that we've been working on for the past 10, 11 years, they're all the same kind of diverse collection of spirits. By bringing them into relation, then you start to see the connections between them all.
And there's pictures. There's this one picture of you, and I mean this in the most sexiest way. It's like grotesque.
It was pretty primal. We've put images in to try and shed some light on the sort of embodied aspects of what we're talking about, because it's very hard to communicate that unless you're doing it in the flesh. When those pictures were taken, I was in a very altered trance state. So I was working with some very dark, archaic energies.
I could almost see it coming out of your face.
And it was,
in your eyes.
It wasn't me at the time. It was someone.
The artist we were working with,
Gas
Boucher,
and Nadine Hubert.
Gas, who commissioned Alkistis to come and dance in it, and it's this huge cathedral-sized space in Belgium, like all painted grey, and these projections all over the walls and all over Alkistis while she was dancing. And when he saw her do it, his response was, I didn't think this happened in the West. This kind of like trance possession actually functioning like within like a Western magical context. He'd always assumed that it was something which
context. Because the sacred in our culture, in the West, because it's so secular, the sacred has very limited spaces to exist and also a very limited understanding of what it is. And I feel very much that as a woman, there is no space really for women to have that relationship with, that full-bodied relationship with the sacred. And so I'm also looking for other spaces. Can I make that connection and bring something through in a context of an art gallery? Can I do it at a conference? Can I do it on stage? Can I do it in like an art or a performance context? Because it doesn't happen much in churches now. There's this experience, because I'm trying to connect with another energy, not to a Christian energy, but to an energy which I trace through the Whore of Babylon. So everything that was forbidden in woman and the divine feminine is represented by Babylon for me. And so she is the mother of harlots and abominations. And all of these energies which are very powerful and very rooted in sex. It's not what people were expecting at Gast's exhibition, that closing night, when I did that performance, because art galleries are usually much more, we're appreciating things. But he also works with Stephen O'Malley, who of Sun. Who is also similarly like full-bodied onslaught of music. So, like for example, when he was playing, I just lay down on the floor and felt the music just going through my body relentlessly. Question these boundaries between the sacred and the body and art and music, and bring something else through. We have to find our own spaces for this now ourselves.
People generally culturally don't know how to read dance. It's like it's a new thing for them.
I think the strange thing with dance is that people can often be, I don't understand dance, but dance is actually immediate. You understand it with your physical response to it. It's our primary language. And it's the language that we inherited from animals. Animals dance. It's not like something we invented. It's something we became human already doing.
One of the essays in your book talks about that. The cave paintings. The upraised arms. And actually that's probably a dance move. Before language, this is how people communicated.
And this is the thing that gets lost in modern magical culture. It's like, magicians danced. Magicians were dancers.
David danced before the shrine for Yahweh. It's even in the Bible.
This is the word of the Lord of hosts. I took you from the pastures and from following the sheep to be prince over my people Israel.
Then Christ danced, Jesus danced with his disciples. In Gnostic Gospels it describes him doing a circle dance with him in the middle and his disciples circling around him, and it's exactly, and anti-clockwise, it's exactly like the witches' dance.
So when you see magicians like doing, high ceremonial, and they're doing their processions around the circle, or you're moving even in the circle, this contains dance. There is dance in magic, but it's fallen out a little bit.
Because maybe it's not taught.
Because it's not taught, because people are learning from books, or people come from a culture where they don't move, so they don't understand that that's part of it. And I think a lot of people have these primal magical experiences when they're doing things like spending extended time like dancing by themselves.
People always talk about this when they go to raves, when they go to like any sort of like EDM party.
Yeah.
That bass, and then you get into a trance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not if you stand and just like with your like cup of
No,
wine.
you have to
Yeah.
start moving.
Yeah.
Start feeling.
Yeah.
You have to dance. So guys, if you are busy doing your magic in somebody's basement and not going out to a club, just go to a club.
Yeah.
Go to a club and dance.
But the body's also, I mean, you have to look at the analysis of people like Michel Foucault and how the body has been drilled and prepared for industrial work. So if you look at, even if you look at schooling, like school is not about teaching you stuff. What it's teaching you to do is to sit down at your desk, to shut the fuck up and to do what you're told and to be on time. It's training you to be a factory worker.
Right.
And if you're trained to sit down all the time, then your body, you shrink into yourself. And so they retreat into the world of the phone. And so they retreat into this very small world with a forward shoulder and a slump posture. And the body just gradually shuts down.
Not just that the sitting down is abrasive on the body and modern life is abrasive, and that dance can heal that. I'm really obsessed with the Bahraini pearl divers and their music. And they would work really hard out on the boats and diving for pearls and come back and work for like a long time, and then when they came back they don't go home and rest, they dance and play music together, and they have a very physical dance where they're like huge jumping and they go into trance.
Tunes produced by the different musical instrument talk to each other in a magical dialogue that exists nowhere else.
And through this they heal themselves. They're not tired. They bring their energy back. So the keeping still actually reduces the energy, and you have to move to raise the energy. So a lot of rhythmic work I do, like a lot of the shaking or the waves is to do with this raising of energy or quieting of energy. And it works within the body, it works with objects. You can enliven fetishes, things, because the spirit is in everything.
That's one of the themes that I noticed in this book. This constant talking about the body, embodied, body.
Yeah.
I can say from experience, when I was in Bali, we actually went and did a ceremony. Our Airbnb guests were just like, hosts were just like, oh, why don't you come with us? My friend and I, we hadn't eaten the whole day, and yet the movement in the ceremony was so spiritually fulfilling that our bodies didn't feel empty.
Yeah.
So I think about how there's so much drug addiction, overeating, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, I don't think it's just that people want to consume. I think they're trying to feel something.
Yeah.
And that's something that your book touches on. When we talked last time, it was about the occulted body, this deep, dark body.
Yeah.
It also has needs.
It needs to be seen, it needs to be recognized.
As we're always saying, I mean, the body is the primary magical tool. You have a body, you don't need to you don't need to go on Etsy and buy yourself like 1,000, wands with crystals sticking out of them. You don't need to consume. You have your most potent magical tool, and that's where your work needs to begin, because that's where your work will also end.
It's this interface between the body and the tool. So the tool is an extension of the body, and when you use a sword, then it's your body using the sword, and the sword extends into space what the body's intent is, what the mind and the body is intended. But to do that properly, to direct energy with a wand or a sword, one has to be connected with the energy through one's body, and also focus with concentration. So these are embodied techniques.
Yeah.
Even when the focus is on tools, they're just objects until you use them. The body is always making itself. The body is making itself in doing things. And at the same time as it makes the physical body, it's giving you your subjective self. Because you're coming through yourself and encountering the world, the environment. Because we're never just alone. We're in an environment full of other agencies, whether they're spiritual, people, animals, trees. There are other things that wind, air, elements, all of these things are interacting with us all the time, and we are pushing into them, and they're pushing back.
And I think it's one of your essays, you talk about how, as we're destroying the earth, I mean, we don't realize that we're actually destroying our magic.
Yeah, completely. When you lose species, you lose species cultures, you lose the magic of those species as well.
When you lose languages, you lose the magic that goes with the languages.
The advice for people is always to start at a really local level in terms of understanding who they are and their place in the world, and that means the plants and the trees around you. If you're living in a city, the cracks are like full of plant life, you know, and you have to understand what these species are, what they're doing, why they're surviving, you know, what you can learn from them. Even in a denatured, you know, urban environment, you can find these things. You can relate to the weather. You can understand the weather. So when you're talking about these magicians who are doing the "I'm God Almighty, I can control everything," it's like, fuck you guys, because if
as a surfer, you know,
as a surfer, as a mountain biker, as a snowboarder, like I'm always out in elemental conditions with the elementals, like the lowest spirits, and they will fucking kill you, and they don't care. They do not care, and they will kill you. And if you don't have that experience, and you're just living in your urban pad, and you're playing your "I'm the ruler of the universe" game, you're just a deluded schmuck.
You're talking a little bit about how I was in Bali and you've surfed in Bali, and I remember you talking about you almost drowned a couple times.
Yeah, I've had a few.
And so you understand that nature literally doesn't care.
Yeah, no, it doesn't care. It will hold you against the sea bottom, and you're there as long as it wants to hold you there. You know, and
your will is not going to.
Your will's not the same. I mean, the critical thing. A lot of the ideas in the Red Goddess, when I'm writing about ideas of like surrender and letting go, is like, you know, the one of the critical magical formulas working with Babylon, working with spirit. You have to learn to surrender, and one way to learn to surrender is place yourself in an elemental position where you have no choice. You know, if you're being drowned. And you thrash around, you just burn more oxygen. You burn more oxygen, you're not going to come out of it. The only way to come out of these things is to understand that you have to be in your center and you have to surrender to the experience. Physiologically, like, I'm driven to looking for quite extreme states. That's just my personal thing. It's not something that I want to impose on other people. You'll find that in yoga. You go to a yoga class, and if you're actually present and breathing and working your asana, it'll kick your ass. And these are the things that have fallen out of magic, and they've fallen out of magic as we're in an increasingly digital culture where people are trying to signal online. They're just taking pretty pictures of things, and they're not understanding that behind the ability to perform magical acts and to cultivate magical power is like the slow, personal, like unglamorous work, the repetition, the slow conquest, the
grind.
The grind. You've got to embrace the grind. You know, and embracing the grind also means embracing the suck. It means you know,
sucking
accepting that you suck at things, and that doesn't make a great Instagram picture.
I think that's one of the blocks for a lot of my audience. They want to learn more about magic, but first, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
Secondly, when they try to get help, it's sort of like everybody's like, you don't know this already?
You come to magic and there's a really high bar to entry in terms of the amount of books you're meant to have read.
Yeah.
Everyone presents as an expert. So the big joke in publishing is that if you want to sell a book, you call it advanced black magic. If you don't want to sell a book, you say a beginner's basic guide to, because everyone wants to jump immediately to the higher level, and no one wants to come forward and say, I'm a beginner, I'm a neophyte, because all of these jumped up idiots on the internet are presenting themselves as already experts.
I think because of the difficult, how to prove if your magic is working. Mm-hmm. So people have to present success all the time, or that they don't fail, I don't know, something like that. It's quite subjective magic.
You know, the fashion is for people to frame their magic in terms of how authentic it is, how close, for example, it is to, you know, the operating procedure of a particular grimoire. Everyone's magic is different. Everyone is on their own personal journey. There are points of similarity and there are huge points of difference. And one of the reasons that we wanted to put out put out Brazen is to also to show process, to show that over this 10-year period, our ideas have shifted and changed. Now, ideas
evolved.
will continue to evolve and change, rather than the idea that you know, this is the finished product at this point. No, it's process. It's always process. And a regular practice in a diary is like the classical way to do that, rather than the number of likes you get for a post. That doesn't mean that I criticize people who've grown up on the internet and are trying to find who they are and are trying to learn who they are by putting things up on the internet, or connect with other people. That's really valuable. You know, the other stage of magic is really useful as well.
I think what you're saying about this beginner's mind and empty state is really important, because what I find a lot is that most people I engage with are always at least half full. They've taken so much in that this continual like returning to the beginner's mind of emptying yourself of challenging your own ideas, things that you've become comfortable in. So finding states where you challenge your own comfort, where you question things, where you empty yourself periodically so that you can, and this is very part of meditation, just sort of the quieting of the mind, but just in terms of, so that you can receive from people, and also so that you can discern what you're receiving. Because I think when you get hyper-stimulated, this is the same with eating. If you're hyper-stimulated by lots of different flavors, you keep eating. And the same with social media and all of the sort of the signals that people are putting out and saying like, learn from me, and I've got this, and come to me. You can take from everything and end up never really fusing it into your own body, like actually embodying what you need and taking what you need from it. Because in magic it's really hard to discern the good from the bad. I mean, you have to be centered in yourself so you can be discerning. I think discernment is also a very feminine skill. So as well, Western magic has this completely distorted idea about what femininity is. And the idea of being receptive is seen to be passive. It's seen to be negative, like you're not active, you're passive. Whereas, you know, the real thing is in like the active male.
Right.
You're just taking it, right? But actually being receptive is being discerning. Discernment is critical, and I think this is critical in like working with Babylon and Babylon magic, because to have this ability to receive is so. I work a lot with the trance state, and so to receive the spirit, one has to empty oneself. It's very much like the Greek concept of kenosis. So the spirit comes into you because you're empty. So you find a state of emptiness, and I use physical techniques for this. Very, very important to have that openness in order for the divine, the sacred, the spirit to manifest in the world, to come through the body, because it's invisible otherwise. This is part of the occulted body, so much is invisible, but how we see it is through the body. We see the invisible through the body.
And that's the other reason that we wanted to put all the images of Alkistis dancing in the book, because magic in Western tradition tends to be so text-based that the physical aspects of practice get ignored. They get treated as if they're something like incidental, because largely because like moribund like male magicians don't do it.
We're embodied all the time. It's just that it's invisible to us, or it's an inconvenience, or it's pain.
Yeah.
So people put it aside and don't recognize that this is the primary tool. This is the first thing.
A lot of people do magic, especially when you're starting out, to feel good. Magic, real magic, can be terrifying, chaotic.
I think we say this in the preface. There are two things that drive magic: need and desire. So like the desire for knowledge, the desire for something, and need. And I think that's really the only criteria I could describe that is behind what magic is. Knowing what those things are, recognizing them, then confronting them or finding them.
One of the things that's interesting about this book is that it's between the two of you. Like, these articles came out through a collaboration between the two of you, like in a partnership that's professional, romantic, spiritual, magical. And that's kind of like goals, right? Hashtag goals. To find a partner who supports you in all those ways. And I think
and
especially
also washing up. He had been introduced by a mutual friend, and like he's a magician and a ninjutsu. What do you do? Ninjutsu. So I was just like, oh, okay, someone I can have fun with, and then throw away. Like, what is this magic thing? So I just spent all the time sort of provoking you and testing you, and it's like just endlessly shit testing you.
I do that too, to see what the guy will do. And and when she was testing you, like, what did you do?
I'm fine with these kind of high pressure situations.
My body knew, but my mind was completely resistant to it. My heart was very closed at the time because I'd been hurt, I'd been through difficult relationship. I was dealing with a lot of mistrust of people, and I had huge issues. I just never...
And I think also, I mean, because you've had disclosure on this before, because Alkistis is bipolar, it's been...
I don't like the word bipolar.
I know, but simply because it's a term that people understand.
Yeah.
You know, it's taken quite a process to find ways to support her through her creative process and being, because her energy goes up and down a lot, you know, which means that...
Sometimes I'm a dancer, but sometimes I literally can't move. Sometimes Peter takes me for a walk and he's holding me, like, he's literally supporting me and I'm taking steps like this. This is what people don't see, and I don't, like, talk about it. Peter's been incredibly supportive of that and enabled me to actually be productive and creative.
You know, I think it's also helpful to share that, because people
often
often think, oh, you know, Alkistis is thin, she's pretty, obviously she's got everything, you know, life must be easy, everything must be okay, and it's... you can
still get stuff done, you can still be productive in the world, you can still, like, no matter what. It's important to know that even if it just means you do one small thing a day, but it's that kind of Chinese energy thing. There's like one sheet of paper, another sheet of paper, another sheet of paper, and eventually becomes something.
Yeah. But people
who are drawn to magic,
people are drawn to magic, to persist with magic. They have these things that they need to work on, that they have to work on and find in themselves. And sometimes that can get lost in the posturing or the book collecting or the signaling. But a core, you have to find and work on those things yourself, or if you're lucky, with a lover or with a few close friends. You know, these are finding the others, finding your peers, finding the places in which you can experience these things. Hopefully, people will be able to see that our works counterpoint each other. That what I say and what Alkistis say, they both kind of illuminate each other. You know, and you get a more balanced perspective as a result of like reading both of our perspectives. I can project quite a masculine identity, and my writing can sometimes be quite confrontational and polemic. Some of my work's quite polemical, so it's very easy for people to criticise me and decide that I'm this ultra masculine character, and of course men are the devil, and it's quite easy to be castigated for that. But when you see our work in relationship, you can understand that there's a dialectic, that there's a process, that there's a dialogue going on between these aspects.
My interest since working with Peter has been very much about bringing this energy that's been so shut down in the West back into like the world. Because I think that's in all women. I think it's in all men. And they do it in their own way. So I don't think Babylon is just female energy. I think Babylon is sex. And I think it's very necessary for it to work absolutely uninhibitedly through the female body, but also through the male. Because the male and the female together, like the female energy when she's fully in bloom controls the male energy. I love male energy, actually. I love masculine energy in all its flavours. But for that to fully be, and not to be something which like just goes out of control and damages other people, men and women, the female energy has to be completely strong and unhindered and allowed to be. And that's women's responsibility to like bring that through and just do that. I don't think men need to like shut up and like step back. No, we need all these kind of energies in the mix, in the vessel.
We have a lot of queer and trans people who respond really powerfully to our work. So, occasionally because, we're a, heterosexual couple, will be, there's some criticism because you're heterosexual, and it's like, well, no, actually, the majority, the majority of the people who read the Red Goddess are women, and some of our longest supporters are queer, trans people, sexual outlaws, people because they've had to explore these energies within their own bodies. So when we talk about things in a gendered way, we talk about them in a gendered way because that's our experience.
But at its root, the sexual energy is not differentiated.
Yeah. Right.
It's just working through different bodies. So whatever your body is expressing that.
Yeah.
And that energy is working with the body, whatever the body is.
Yeah.
Because when you touch someone's body, you're really seeing them. You're really, really seeing into them. And the more you do it, also the more you hone it, the more lucid it becomes, the more clear. You can see into the occulted body. You can literally see into the body. It's not just about like penis in vagina or penis in asshole or whatever. It's not just about penetration, but the penetration can be, I'm penetrating Peter now. I put the energy. The energy is going in, I'm seeing him, I feel him, I know him. So I'm always being penetrated. At the same time I do that, it's in me. There's no, you can't cut yourself off from it. You can't cut yourself off from your environment. So this is for me what the sexual energy is.
When we're presenting these ideas, we're not presenting these ideas in a way that it has to be that it has to be male and female. I mean, not at all. And that hasn't been the case in the magical community for
sometimes
20, 30 years.
I think one of the problems with the identity politics is that it puts people in very fixed categories. And it was never like that. I mean, I grew up responding to queer culture much more strongly than to anything in the mainstream. So I was very fascinated by Lee Bowery and by Michael Clark. And they were like gods to me. It wasn't about like who you fuck. It was about how you relate to the world, how you relate to other people. And this is why I don't really consider myself heterosexual, because why? I don't feel limited like that. I don't feel...
You don't feel cut off from the erotic potential of the world that's
within
everything.
Yeah, from women, from men, from
inanimate
everything.
Objects,
what was it I said to you that time? I shouted out in Brighton and people laughed outside, like, everything's an aphrodisiac. I mean, I just said this like a sort of euphoria, and we heard like some guys laughing outside, like this is such a Brighton thing to happen. But really, this relationship to the world is purely erotic, and it can find expression in penetration, but it can find expression in so many other ways too.
And I think the thing that also sometimes gets missed in our work is that the experience of penetration is something that's important for men too, by which I mean anything which penetrates a man. So needles, cutting, emotions. Men aren't very good at receiving these things, and so I think it's very important for men to work on their own receptivity. Touch, doesn't mean you have to be fucked in the ass with a strap on. It means that men have to also find the ability to listen with their bodies and to find that feminine energy within them and to work with feminine energy in that way.
That receptive listening.
That receptivity and that listening, which is one of the things that tends to get blunted out of the male experience.
The way that some women some feminist ideology has tried to find a space for itself beyond what it considers to be a masculine language, which I don't consider language to be masculine. Language arose because of culture, which came out of menstrual blood. It's the symbolic world arose out of the analog, out of things that are like each other, out of sympathia, which is what we work with magic. Whole of magic is sympathia before you get to symbol and language. So language is also based in this analog and in this likeness and sympathia, and that's ultimately rooted in women's culture that comes out of their menstruation. So I'm not ceding language to men, I'm having language as well, thank you.
Yeah.
But I find a lot of the feminine ideology, feminist ideology, to be too languaged without being recognizing what bodies do. It's that simple. I mean, there's my favourite writer on this is Maxine Sheets-Johnstone, and I think everybody should read. Like, everybody should read her at school, because she talks about like the roots of power, the roots of morality, the roots of thinking, about the primacy of the body and movement. Her work is really, I think, critically important to address like what a body actually is, and how our meanings are elaborated through bodies. Men and women both contain these energies. We both know this. We both know this at such a deep level. We know this in our bones. So that it's just that we emerge into the world and we're wearing masks. You know, there is performativity. We are always performing, but that doesn't mean there isn't a real body underneath it. So, like, for example, some of the influence of Judith Butler's ideas on like the sort of modern ideas of there's no such thing as sex, we're just performing. It's like, yes, we are just performing, we're all performing all of the time, and we can perform in any ways, in a complete myriad of ways. But underneath that performance is a body that's performing. The beauty of culture is that we can choose to perform as we wish. We can choose what face to give to the world.
And magic's clearly like one of those spaces that people engage in performativity, you know, and people engage in taking on these different identities and taking on, in theory, being able to take on different spirits, being able to be possessed and work through different forces. I mean, this is an amazingly powerful cultural tool for us to gain that degree of plasticity and that sense of interrelation to everything in the world, to stop seeing ourselves as absolutely isolated individuals, which is one of the mistakes that I see male magicians in particular making, in that they see themselves as this sealed unit from which they are controlling the world, and that isn't the case. The experience is that everything is constantly interpenetrated. We're constantly trafficking with entities. We're constantly like being taken over by things. We're constantly flowing through things. And to be a magician means that you should be able to become formless. You should be able to flow. You should be able to like move between these states and discriminate and understand when things are coming through you, and then to be able to become an active player in the game.
But always the focus is on Babylon, because she represents this entirety of woman, including everything that was forbidden, but which is there. And so I felt that if I went and explored her mysteries through my body, which is there is no text. So that's why my work has been exclusively with the body. Text written by men that there's too many problems with. It's structurally wrong. It's structurally wrong at the very core. So the only way I could find it out was to go into my body, to find Babylon in my body. So like I was talking to you before, like using the body as a text, not a book, the body, and reading my body.
And that's, I think, the main message that I received from Brazen Vessel was about that body, and about the feminine modes of magic that are yet to be talked about, discovered, transmitted.
I would hope that it would be picked up and read in that way. I mean, I don't want people to...
I mean, we try to be very careful in our work, never to tell people what to do, never to say that this is the only way, or you must do this, or you must be like us. I think we really want people to see the process that we're going through, and to be able to read themselves into it and find their own method of practicing. We don't want to just talk to people who are interested in working with Babylon in this like highly sexualized way. That's just something that's specific to us. It's not something that we want to like impose upon other people in the world. Everyone's got to find their own path, but we want to be able to show this process and show this this discourse between, you know, a male and a female body, and how we're finding our way through this, so that people can find their own inspiration. People can find the confidence to discover the magic within their own bodies, within their own path, and understand that they also have this process to go through.
And to find their own ways to language it,
Yeah.
however that is, you know. It doesn't have to even be through words, but yeah, even through words. I think women need to speak more, and to talk more, and to write more, and communicate, but it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be based in language of like words.
Music, it kind of cuts through the cerebral aspects of language.
Yeah.
And it gets right to the visceral sense, maybe to the occulted body, the occulted ear.
Absolutely,
maybe.
absolutely.
Yeah, so okay. The question would be, if you had to choose 3 songs that represent Brazen Vessel, what would they be?
Children of God by Swans. Because also I found very interesting the creative relationship between Michael Gira and Jarbeau, who the sort of at that point in Swans manifestation, like the sort of the creative energy at the heart of it, and it's really fascinating, and it's really, really deep and really powerful music.
What about the second song?
Anything by Muslimgauze. This is so hypnotic, and I just love there's a dialogue happening in it, because it's taken from a film called The Silences of the Palace, which is a very feminine film about the experience of this girl who returns to the place where she was born and grew up when the prince that lived there died. So it's like this female space, and the film explores this female space. So this song particularly samples this dialogue going on, and quite low in the mix, so that there's this hypnotic beat, and then there's this dialogue between 2 voices, a male and a female, and it's just, it does something it puts you in a very liminal state. And third,
It has to be demanded, isn't it?
it has to be Dim on the Glass. Okay, Dim on the Glass was my first concert. I took my mum to see her when I was 15. I was sitting in the front row in front of like the speaker, and she came on, and she's just like, she owned the stage from the moment she stepped on it. And she basically established for me at that age that when I needed someone in my life, in my knowledge, like just to know existed in the world, and she walked on stage, it was like, that's her. I can also be who I am in the world. She's just a force of nature. A force of nature.
That's our easy listening kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And guys, I will definitely list down below the link to Brazen Vessel. Of course, they run Scarlet Imprint, which is an incredible magic publishing house. And what's great is that they do these like limited edition, like hardcovers that are talismanic, the actual books. But then, for those of us who are just starting out in magic, maybe, you know, you're still, you know, living at home and you don't have a lot of money, they also do paperback.
And we have digital editions.
And digital as well. So this information is accessible to everybody. And again, like the book, it is a collection of essays from a 10-year period?
Yeah.
About as long as you guys have been together.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's so sweet. Guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Yeah.